When you went silent, my friends, their whole reality glitched. It was like the world they built around themselves suddenly lost power. You see, you weren't just a person in their life. You were part of their emotional routine. Your messages, your presence, your energy had become a rhythm they danced to every day without realizing it. You were their daily dose of validation, their steady hit of comfort that told them, "I still matter." And the moment you went quiet, it was like someone pulled the plug. The lights went out, and their minds started scrambling for signal. They didn't expect that silence could hit harder than words ever could. It's funny, folks, how people grow addicted to attention but pretend they're above it. They acted so confident, so detached, like they didn't need you. But deep down, they built their peace around your presence. They trained their emotions to expect your response, your laughter, your effort. And now, without it, they're going through a quiet kind of withdrawal. That's what most people don't understand. Silence is not revenge. It's therapy. It's detox. It's the universe pressing reset on a system that was feeding off you but never nourishing you. Imagine it like this. You used to be their favorite song, played on repeat, but they never appreciated the lyrics. Then one day the music stopped. Now they keep refreshing the playlist, checking for you, wondering why it doesn't sound the same anymore. That's the moment your absence became louder than your words ever were. Silence is not empty, my friends. It's full of answers. It speaks in a language that only time and regret can translate. Here's the truth most people won't admit. When you stop showing up, you don't just disappear from their phone, you disappear from their sense of control. And control is what the human ego craves most. People love knowing that you'll always reach out, always explain yourself, always fix the tension. But when you stop doing that, it leaves them exposed. Your silence becomes a mirror, and suddenly they're forced to face the version of themselves they avoided, the one that took good people for granted. You see, Stoicism isn't about being cold, it's about being calm in the storm. It's about knowing your worth so deeply that you no longer need to prove it. You walked away not to punish them, but to protect your peace. You stopped arguing because peace speaks louder than defense. You stopped explaining because your actions already said everything. And now your quiet confidence is the loudest sound in their world. They'll try to replace it, they'll distract themselves, but nothing hits like the presence of someone who meant what they said, gave what they had, and then walked away without noise. That's what silence does. It turns mystery into memory. It turns your calm into their chaos. It reminds them that emotional connection cannot be faked or replaced. It can only be felt. And now they're feeling it all. The emptiness, the guilt, the realization that they were standing in the presence of something rare and didn't even know it. Folks, you didn't just go silent. You evolved. You stepped out of their illusion and back into your truth. You know what's powerful? Not saying a single word when someone expects your reaction. That calm restraint confuses them because it breaks their emotional pattern. They expected the same old story. You chasing, you explaining, you fixing. But this time, you became the plot twist. Your silence made them question themselves, question their choices, question why your absence hurts more than your presence ever did. And that's where your power lies, not in proving anything, but in knowing you no longer have to. Let me tell you something straight. People notice when the energy that used to carry the room is no longer there. They feel it when the person who once cared has nothing left to give. They might not say it out loud, but they know deep down they lost someone who was irreplaceable. And that realization? It doesn't come with fireworks. It comes quietly, late at night, when the phone stays still and the room feels too empty. That's when they finally understand that silence isn't absence, it's evolution. So, don't break your silence just to prove you're strong. The strongest move is staying calm while everything around you tries to pull you back into chaos. You're not ignoring them. You're investing in your peace. You're not cold. You're clear. You're not bitter. You're balanced. The moment you stopped reacting, you started healing. And that healing is what's truly haunting them now. Because deep down, they know you're no longer reachable. Stay calm, stay grounded, and remember, silence is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's not avoidance, it's alignment. It's not revenge, it's recovery. You are no longer their emotional supply. You are your own peace. And folks, that's the ultimate freedom. And if what you just heard struck something deep inside you, don't just sit with it, act on it. This isn't just another video, my friends. This is your reminder that calm is not surrender. It's strategy. When you choose peace, you're not backing down. You're stepping up. You're choosing to stand in your own power while the world keeps shouting for attention. That's rare. That's strength most people will never master. So, I want you to seal it right now. Type it in the comments. I choose calm. Say it like a promise to yourself. Say it because calm isn't weakness. It's quiet dominance. It's the art of being untouchable. When you type those words, you're not just joining some trend. You're declaring to the universe, I'm no longer reactive. I'm in control. You're marking the moment you stopped chasing chaos and started commanding your peace. And if you felt that shift, even a little, then hit that like button right now, subscribe, and stay with me, because we're just getting started. Every word, every lesson from here on out is about turning your heartbreak into higher ground. This is your awakening, folks. Your silence isn't their punishment, it's your rebirth. Type it, own it, breathe it. I choose calm. Number 1. Silence isn't distance, it's a mirror. Silence, my friends, is not distance, it's reflection. It's the moment when the noise clears and truth starts echoing off the walls they built around themselves. You didn't disappear to hide or to play games. You stepped back so they could finally see what they refused to face when you were standing right in front of them. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's what your silence does. It exposes what their words always tried to cover. It reveals the cracks they painted over with pride. You see, while you were talking, explaining, proving, defending, they were comfortable. They could pretend not to hear you. They could blame you, twist the story, act like your pain was an exaggeration. But once you stopped speaking, once you stopped giving them your energy, your silence became a mirror. A sharp, honest, unforgiving mirror. And the thing about mirrors is, they don't lie. They show people what they really are, not what they pretend to be. At first, they might act like your absence means nothing. They'll say, "Oh, I'm fine." But behind that mask, something starts to stir. A small whisper turns into a storm. Why does this feel so heavy? Why do I keep thinking about them? Their mind begins looping, revisiting moments they dismissed. They start realizing how selfish they were, how emotionally lazy they became, how comfortable they felt knowing you'd always forgive them. That's the first crack in their armor, the moment their ego begins to sweat under the heat of truth. Silence isn't a wall, it's a spotlight. It shines on everything they tried to ignore, the times they took you for granted, the ways they made you feel small, the moments they left you hanging just to see if you'd still wait. When you stopped rescuing them emotionally, they had no one left to play the victim for. That's when accountability hits. And folks, accountability is the one thing the ego hates more than loneliness. Think about it like this. When you talk, people hear your voice. When you go silent, they hear their own conscience. Your silence isn't the absence of communication. It's the start of self-confrontation. Every unanswered text becomes a reflection of how one-sided things really were. Every quiet night without your presence becomes a replay of what they broke without even noticing. It's like standing in front of a mirror after years of pretending you were flawless and suddenly realizing you're covered in your own neglect. Some of you might be wondering, if silence is so powerful, why does it hurt me too? Why does it feel like I'm the one being punished? And that's fair, my friends, because silence tests both sides. It forces you to face your patterns too, the part of you that kept giving even when it hurt, that stayed when you knew it was draining you. But that's the beauty of it. True silence doesn't just reveal who they are, it reminds you who you were becoming by tolerating less than you deserved. Carl Jung talked about the shadow, the parts of ourselves we deny. When you go silent, you're not running away from connection, you're meeting your own shadow in peace. You're saying, I won't chase chaos anymore, I'll stand still and let truth do its work. That's hard. It takes more strength to stay quiet than to scream your worth. It takes courage to detach when every emotion inside you wants to explain one last time. But that's where your transformation begins, in restraint, in patience, in the decision to let silence speak for you. Let's be honest, it's not easy. You'll have moments when you want to break the silence just to ease the tension. You'll think, maybe if I reach out, it'll make things clear. But clarity doesn't come from conversation, it comes from contrast. People don't see your value when you repeat yourself, they see it when you remove yourself. Your absence forces reflection in a way your words never could. You stopped being part of the noise, and now, every time they face quiet, they're facing you. There's a metaphor I love. When a lake is still, it reflects everything perfectly. When it's disturbed, all you see is distortion. You became that still water, my friends. You stopped chasing ripples and learned to rest. And now they're seeing their own reflection, unfiltered, unedited, uncomfortable. That's why they can't stand your silence, because it doesn't flatter them, it exposes them. Sooner or later, they'll start realizing that your silence is not abandonment, it's balance. You're not rejecting them, you're just done carrying the emotional weight for two. You're not being cold, you're being clear. And that realization will sting because it reminds them that you never needed them as much as they thought. You cared, yes, deeply. But once you woke up to your own worth, you stopped tolerating confusion disguised as love. And let me tell you something. Your silence will outlast their pride. Pride fades when the nights get long. Ego fades when no one's listening. But silence endures. It keeps echoing until they face what they ran from, and when they finally do, they'll see you not as the one who walked away, but as the one who woke up. So, if this message resonates, if you've been silent not to hurt but to heal, then remind yourself right now why you started. You chose peace over drama, reflection over reaction, truth over illusion. You didn't lose them, my friends. You simply stopped rescuing people who were comfortable watching you drown. Let this be your affirmation tonight. Type it in the comments, not for me, but for you. My silence speaks truth. Because it does. It speaks louder than explanations, louder than arguments, louder than their denial ever could. Write it proudly. Say it like a declaration. Number 2. The dopamine drop. Why they suddenly crave you. Let's get real, my friends. When you stopped reaching out, when the constant communication, attention, and reassurance ended, their brain didn't just miss you, it malfunctioned. Every compliment you gave them, every text you sent, every little bit of emotional warmth you offered, it wasn't just attention, it was chemistry. You were their dopamine source. You became the spark that kept their nervous system satisfied, the emotional caffeine that gave them that subtle buzz of importance. And when that stopped, their brain crashed hard. What they're feeling right now isn't just emotional regret, it's chemical withdrawal. See, most people don't realize how relationships, especially the toxic or uneven ones, run on the same circuits as addiction. Every time you sent that message, they got a dopamine hit. Every time you forgave them, they got relief. Every time you gave in, they felt powerful again. It was predictable, controllable, easy. Their mind got used to that steady flow of reward, and you became part of their neurological routine. So when you went silent, it wasn't just your presence they lost, it was their drug. Now, the silence feels like withdrawal. That's why they start replaying old conversations, checking your social media, or even talking about you casually to mutual friends. They're looking for a hit, a memory, a spark, anything to quiet the internal craving. Dopamine doesn't just want pleasure, it wants patterns. And you broke the pattern. That's why it hurts them so much more than they'll ever admit. They were used to the idea that you'd always come back, that they could push you away, then reel you back in. But your silence interrupted the cycle. It took away their control, and when the ego loses control, panic follows. You might wonder, if they treated me so badly, why would they still crave me? Because craving isn't love, folks, it's dependency. Their mind doesn't crave you because they valued you. It craves you because you were familiar. Familiarity creates comfort, and comfort becomes attachment. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate." Their craving for you isn't destiny, it's programming, and right now, that programming is glitching without your emotional input. Let me give you an image. Imagine someone scrolling their phone late at night, staring at your name but not texting. Their finger hovers over the keyboard, but their pride stops them. Still, they can't put the phone down. That's not love. They're chasing the chemical ghost of your attention. Your silence has turned into a mirror for their emptiness, and the silence feels louder with every passing hour. They used to get their high from your reaction, your validation, your care. Now the supply is gone, and their brain doesn't know how to function without it. And here's where it gets even more powerful. The longer you stay silent, the more their system resets. They start remembering your energy differently, not as something they took for granted, but as something they lost. Their memories distort, not because they're lying to themselves, but because the brain starts idealizing whatever it can't access. The moments they once dismissed now seem golden. The laughter they ignored now feels sacred. That's the cruel twist of psychology. They only recognize your worth once the dopamine you gave them disappears. But don't mistake their craving for transformation. Missing you and respecting you are two different things. Their craving is proof of your impact, not their change. Your job is not to return just because they're restless. Your silence is teaching them what their behavior never could, that emotional availability is a privilege, not a right. When you took your energy back, you stopped feeding their addiction and started feeding your healing. And yes, silence can feel lonely at times. You might even feel that craving too, the urge to check on them, to reach out, to restart the cycle just to feel something again. But every time you resist that urge, you rewire your own brain too. You're shifting from reaction to reflection, from needing closure to being your own peace. That's real control. That's emotional mastery. So the next time you wonder if they miss you, remember, they don't just miss you. Their entire emotional chemistry misses the balance your presence created. You were never the problem. You were the equilibrium. And without you, the system is unstable. If this hit home for you, take a breath and remind yourself that power doesn't shout. It sits in silence. Type it in the comments right now. I am my peace. Because that's your truth, my friends. You're not someone's dopamine hit anymore. You are your own calm, your own clarity, your own reward. Number 3. You became a myth, not a memory. Here's what happens, my friends. When they can no longer reach you, they stop seeing you as a person and start seeing you as a story. Your silence turns you from someone they knew into someone they can't stop imagining. You're no longer a memory. They can't file you away neatly like an old text thread or a picture buried in the gallery. No, you became something rarer. You became myth. The kind of myth people whisper to themselves when they're alone, wondering how they lost something that once felt so certain. At first, they'll pretend you were nothing special. They'll tell their friends, "I've moved on," or "It was never that deep." But deep down, that's not the truth, because the mind has a funny way of rewriting the past once access is denied. Suddenly, the smallest moments between you two take on a new weight. The way you laughed when you were tired, the calm tone you used when they tried to provoke you, the way you said their name. It all becomes cinematic, like scenes from a film they can't stop replaying. You've become a mystery their ego can't solve, and that mystery burns. There's a psychological reason behind it. Humans crave resolution. When the story ends abruptly, the mind doesn't move on. It keeps searching for meaning. You gave them something real, and now their brain is stuck in the what-if loop. What if I'd stayed? What if I'd listened? What if they were the one? And the more they think, the more the truth twists. They start editing the past, painting you brighter, softer, wiser. You become this idealized version, half truth, half fantasy. And the irony, folks, is that this new version of you, it's better than the one they actually knew. That's what distance does. It creates perfection through absence. Think about Greek myths. The gods weren't perfect. They were just untouchable. That's what you are to them now, untouchable. You no longer exist in their day-to-day life, so their mind places you above it. You live somewhere between memory and imagination, in that sacred space where longing grows. Every song that reminds them of you hits differently now. Every place you once went together feels haunted. They might even dream about you, and in those dreams, you're always calm, always glowing, always walking away. You see, folks, people never realize how much energy they got from you until you're gone. You were the grounding presence in their chaos. You were the calm before their storms. And now that silence has replaced your voice, they're left searching for you in everything they touch. But here's the secret. They won't find you again. Because what they miss isn't just you. They miss how they felt when they were with you. They miss who they were when your energy made them feel seen, and that version of them can't exist without your presence. That's why you've become mythic. It's not about who you were, it's about what you made them feel. Sometimes they'll even start talking about you to others, not out of love, but obsession. They'll say things like, "They were different," or "I can't explain it, but they had this energy." That's how myths spread, through retelling. You've become the one who got away, the unsolved puzzle, the rare person who didn't play by their rules. Your absence has made you timeless in their mind, and that's a kind of revenge no anger could ever achieve. But remember this, my friends, you didn't become mythical by pretending. You became mythical by being genuine in a world full of performance. Your calm was real, your intentions were pure. You didn't need to act mysterious, you simply valued your peace enough to walk away. That authenticity is what haunts them now. Not the silence itself, but the fact that your silence is honest. It's not manipulation, it's evolution. So when their mind drifts back to you at 2 a.m., when the memories blur with imagination, when they start romanticizing what they once neglected, let them. That's not your burden anymore. That's their lesson. You've become a legend in their emotional history, and legends don't chase, they inspire. If you feel this truth tonight, write it in the comments. I became the lesson. Because that's what this silence has made you. Not a victim, not a ghost, but a lesson they'll never forget. Number 4. The reverse insecurity effect. Here's where the tables really turn, my friends. In most stories, it's the one who got rejected who ends up questioning themselves, wondering what went wrong, asking why they weren't enough. But in your story, silence changed everything. Your calm absence flipped the script. The one who once made you doubt your worth is now sitting with that same uncertainty. That's the reverse insecurity effect. They used to feel untouchable while you chased clarity. Now they're the ones analyzing every detail, haunted by questions that never find answers. See, when you stopped reacting, you took away their favorite power source, control. They used to control the pace, the narrative, your emotions. They knew your heart too well, knew you'd always reach out, knew you'd always explain, knew you couldn't stand the discomfort of not knowing. But when you finally embraced silence without bitterness, something inside them cracked. That calm unnerved them because it wasn't fueled by anger, it was fueled by acceptance. And acceptance is dangerous to the ego. It says, I've seen the truth and I'm fine with it. Nothing shakes a manipulative or prideful person more than realizing you don't need closure. They do. You see, folks, silence doesn't just remove you from their life. It removes the illusion that they were in control. It exposes their fragility. Suddenly, they start wondering, were they pretending all along? Did they find someone else? That's not jealousy, it's insecurity. They start comparing themselves to the imaginary version of whoever they think replaced them. That quiet space you created becomes a breeding ground for their overthinking. And that's poetic justice, isn't it? Because for so long you were the one carrying that weight, wondering, doubting, chasing shadows. Now it's their turn to feel the discomfort of not knowing. There's something magnetic about calm detachment. Carl Jung said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that's exactly what your silence did. It aligned you with your true self. You no longer needed to prove your worth, and that terrified them. When you stopped reacting, you stopped feeding their ego. And once the ego loses its audience, it starts to collapse. They can't process why you seem so composed, why you didn't argue, why you didn't fall apart. That calmness whispers one truth louder than words ever could. You never needed them to begin with. Here's the psychology behind it. Rejection triggers insecurity in whoever cares more. When you cared deeply, you felt it. But once you mastered detachment, that energy reversed. Now they care more, and the imbalance haunts them. They're addicted to the idea of being desired, and your silence stole that validation. They start chasing ghosts, checking your profile, asking about you, wondering if you've already moved on. The same person who once had all the confidence in the world now second-guesses their worth. They might even start testing you again, posting things to get your attention, pretending they're fine, trying to provoke a reaction. But what they don't realize is that calm doesn't mean careless. You're not cold, you're centered. You're not trying to prove anything anymore. You've simply outgrown the game. And when someone realizes they can't emotionally move you anymore, they begin to question their own value. That's what I call psychological gravity. You've shifted the weight back where it belongs. And yes, it can feel strange at first, to see the roles reversed, to know that the person who once broke your confidence now secretly wonders if they're not enough. But that's not your cue to feel guilt. That's your reminder that balance always returns when you stop chasing it. You don't have to punish anyone. Your silence already did what words never could. It revealed the truth. So hold that energy, folks. Stay in that peace that confuses them. Let your silence continue to whisper that you've evolved. You didn't walk away to make them insecure. You walked away to make yourself whole. But that's the paradox. Your wholeness now shines like confidence, and your confidence feels like mystery. That's why they can't stop thinking about you. If this message spoke to your spirit, type it right now in the comments, "My calm is power," because it truly is. It's not silence born from fear, it's silence born from strength. Number 5. Cognitive dissonance. Their mind can't reconcile your absence. Here's where the real psychological storm begins, my friends. When you walked away, you didn't just leave their life, you left their mind divided. Their brain now lives between two worlds, one where you adored them, and one where you no longer exist. That conflict, that tension, is what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. It's what happens when someone's reality doesn't match their memory. They once knew you as constant, loving, forgiving. Now you're gone, calmly, completely, without explanation. Their brain can't compute it. It's like trying to run new software on an old system. It keeps freezing, replaying, searching for answers that don't exist. You see, folks, when someone is used to being the center of your world, your silence doesn't just confuse them, it threatens their identity. They built a story in their head where they were always the one with control, the one who could come and go while you stayed loyal. Your absence now challenges that story. It says, no, that wasn't the truth. So their mind scrambles to protect itself. It starts rewriting history, not because they've changed, but because they can't stand the emotional friction of knowing they were wrong. That's how regret is born, not from guilt, but from discomfort. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And that's exactly what's happening here. Instead of facing the truth that they underestimated you, disrespected you, or mistreated your loyalty, they start rewriting the narrative to soothe their conscience. Maybe they were the real one. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe I pushed too hard. That's not clarity, that's self-preservation. It's the mind's way of saying, I can't handle the reality that I lost someone who was actually good for me. It's a strange thing, isn't it? While they once made you question your worth, now their brain questions their own judgment. They remember how much effort you gave, how patient you were, how you tried to understand them when no one else did. But that memory doesn't fit the version of the story where they were the strong one, the smart one, the one in control. That's the dissonance. They can't see you as both kind and gone. They can't comprehend how someone who cared so deeply could detach so peacefully. It doesn't add up in their emotional math. Imagine them scrolling through old texts, seeing your affection in your words, then remembering how coldly they dismissed you. That's when the sting sets in. Their mind whispers, wait, maybe they weren't overreacting. Maybe I was cruel, but the ego hates that realization, so it fights back. It swings between arrogance and regret, between they'll come back and I really lost them. That's cognitive dissonance at work, a mental tug-of-war between pride and truth. And here's where you gain your real power. You don't have to explain, justify, or return. The discomfort they feel isn't your burden. It's their awakening. Every time their mind tries to paint you as replaceable, their heart interrupts the lie. Every time they convince themselves they don't care, your absence reminds them otherwise. That's not revenge. It's reality correcting itself. Silence became the mirror, and dissonance became their punishment. But let's talk about you for a second, my friends. It can be tempting to break the silence, to ease their confusion, or even your own. You might think, maybe I should clarify what happened. But Stoicism teaches us, truth doesn't need defense. You've already shown your truth through your actions. The universe handles the rest. Let their mind do the work. Let the discomfort do its job. It's in that discomfort that they'll finally face who they were and who you truly are. In time, they'll come to understand it wasn't anger that made you quiet. It was wisdom. They'll realize you didn't vanish out of pride. You left because peace doesn't argue. And by then, it'll be too late to rewrite the ending. Because while they're still editing the past, you'll be living your future, calm and unbothered. If this part hit you deep, type it in the comments right now. My silence teaches. Because that's exactly what it does. Your silence is not empty. It's instructive. It holds up a mirror to others while holding space for your own healing. Number 6. Social phantom. You still live in their digital shadow. It's strange, isn't it, my friends? You're gone. You've moved on. You don't post about them. You don't talk about them. You don't even think about them much anymore. But somehow you still exist in their world. Not as a person they can reach, but as a presence they can't escape. That's what I call the social phantom. You're not haunting them in the supernatural sense. You're haunting them in the digital one. You live in the spaces they thought would distract them from you. The moment they open their phone, scroll their feed, or step into a place that once held your laughter, you're there, quiet, invisible, but unforgettable. See, folks, energy leaves fingerprints. Every song you shared, every place you tagged, every word that carried your voice. It all lingers. It's like the universe left breadcrumbs of your existence scattered in their daily life. Now they keep bumping into echoes of you. They'll see someone wearing the same color you used to love. They'll pass by a cafe that still plays that song you once hummed under your breath. They'll notice someone using a phrase you always said, and it hits them like a flashback. That's not coincidence. That's the afterimage of your energy, still glowing in their world long after you stopped shining it directly at them. The digital age makes it worse. Social media doesn't let people truly disappear. Even if you've stopped posting, your shadow remains. Your old pictures, your quotes, your comments, they resurface like memories refusing to die. The algorithm remembers you even when they try to forget. It keeps showing them things that look like you, feel like you, remind them of you. They scroll, they laugh, they stop, and suddenly a song lyric or a post drags their heart right back to you. They're haunted, not by what you did, but by who you were, because your energy became part of their environment, and no block button can delete that. Psychologically, this is what we call emotional imprinting. You became a pattern in their brain, a rhythm they got used to. Now that rhythm plays faintly in the background of their new connections. They try dating someone else, thinking it'll help, but every person they meet gets compared to you. The tone, the style, the way you carried yourself, it's the benchmark they can't erase. You're the ghost in their conversations, the name they don't say out loud, but think about when things go quiet. Even their new relationships can feel haunted because they're chasing something they don't understand, you. You see, the universe has a poetic sense of balance. When someone takes your presence for granted, the universe lets them live with your absence everywhere. They'll start noticing that no matter who they meet, no one feels the same. No one has your calm, your patience, your quiet strength. They'll find people louder, bolder, more available, but not you. And that's when regret morphs into longing, not because they can't find better, but because better doesn't feel the same. And that's the secret of the social phantom. You didn't have to chase revenge. You didn't have to post quotes or prove your growth. You simply disappeared with grace, and your silence became louder than any words they could post. Now, their own environment keeps whispering your name. You became the ghost of their comfort zone, the reminder of what they lost when they stopped valuing what was real. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists." And they're resisting you every day, pretending they've moved on, pretending they're unaffected. But in doing so, they keep feeding your memory with energy. They see your reflection everywhere, not because you're trying to stay visible, but because their mind refuses to release you. So let them scroll, let them post, let them pretend. You don't have to do a thing. The energy you gave was real, and real energy doesn't disappear, it transforms. You've become part of their world's background music, a melody that refuses to fade. That's what true impact looks like. If you feel that power within you tonight, write it in the comments right now. I live rent-free, because you do. You live in their thoughts, their memories, and the quiet corners of their scrolling world. Number 7. The reversal of power. Silence becomes seduction. This is where the story takes a fascinating turn, my friends. What once looked like distance has now become desire. Your silence isn't emptiness, it's seduction. In a world where everyone is shouting for attention, where oversharing is the new addiction, your restraint feels exotic. You became the rare one, the person who didn't need to prove, perform, or explain. And in that quiet confidence, you became magnetic. That's the paradox of silence. The moment you stop chasing, you start attracting. The moment you stop begging to be seen, they start squinting into the dark, trying to find you. Let's talk about the psychology behind it. Humans crave what feels scarce. It's wired into our nature. The less available something is, the more the mind values it. When you were accessible, they assumed you'd always be there. You were like air, vital but invisible. But when you withdrew your energy, your absence created mystery. Now, your silence isn't rejection, it's rarity. It's the quiet tension that keeps them wondering, where did they go? Why aren't they reacting? Who has their attention now? You're no longer predictable, and that unpredictability has become intoxicating. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." That's what your silence did. It changed the chemical balance between you. You used to be the pursuer, the giver, the one who always reacted. Now, you've flipped that dynamic completely. They're the ones leaning forward, waiting, guessing, decoding every trace of your energy. Your restraint has become a language of its own, one that says, "I'm not desperate for your attention. You'll have to earn my presence now." Think about how powerful that is. You're not ignoring them. You're controlling the tempo. You've stopped dancing to their rhythm, and now they're trying to learn yours. Silence becomes your rhythm. Every unread message, every unposted story, every calm decision not to engage, each one deepens the mystery. They start replaying moments, searching for clues in your last words, wondering what you're thinking now. They begin to romanticize the quiet, and that's where the seduction begins, not through words or touch, but through the space you've created. You see, folks, seduction isn't about being louder, it's about being felt in your absence. When they can't predict you, they start projecting onto you. They fill in the blanks with imagination. They'll picture you smiling with someone new, glowing with confidence, unbothered by the chaos they once brought. And that image? That's what drives them crazy. Because mystery always outruns availability. When they can't read you, they crave you. When they can't reach you, they idealize you. Your silence, without saying a word, starts whispering, "You lost access." And here's what's beautiful. You didn't need to manipulate anyone to get here. You simply detached. You learned that peace can be seductive, that stillness can be attractive, that not explaining yourself is sometimes the most powerful statement of self-worth. In your silence, you created curiosity. In your restraint, you built desire, and now they're the ones feeling that magnetic pull, the one you once felt for them. It's funny how life flips like that. The same quiet that once made you feel invisible is now what makes you unforgettable. The silence that once felt like emptiness is now charged with presence. Because when you learn to enjoy your own company, you become the kind of energy people can't forget. You're not chasing validation anymore. You are validation. You're not trying to impress anyone. You've already left an impression. So don't break your silence just to ease their curiosity. Let it breathe. Let it work for you. Because the truth is, silence isn't the absence of communication. It's mastery of it. You've turned it into an art form, a quiet confidence that seduces without trying. If you feel that shift within you, if you've stopped performing and started simply being, then type it right now in the comments. My silence is magnetic. Because it is. It draws power, it commands attention, and it reminds the world that not everyone needs to speak to be heard. Number 8. They'll reach out, but it's you who'll decide the ending. And this, my friends, is where the story completes its circle. Not with noise, not with drama, but with stillness and control. They will reach out. It may not be today, and it may not come the way you expect, but they will. Because silence always plants a seed in the human mind, a question that never stops growing. What if? What if you were the one? What if they misjudged you? What if they never find another soul that made them feel as seen, as grounded, as alive as you did? That's the kind of curiosity that doesn't fade. It festers until it forces action. But when that moment comes, they won't be meeting the same version of you they left behind. Your silence didn't freeze you in time, it evolved you. You've grown quieter, wiser, stronger. You've become emotionally ungovernable. You don't react, you reflect. You don't chase, you choose. The person they remember was seeking closure. The person they'll meet now is closure. That's the power of transformation. You didn't just survive their rejection, you alchemized it into peace. Picture this. One day, out of nowhere, your phone lights up with their name. A message, a memory, a "Hey, how have you been?" And you'll feel that familiar sting of nostalgia. But instead of falling into the old rhythm, you'll smile calmly, knowingly, because you'll realize something they still don't. Your silence wasn't revenge, it was realignment. You didn't walk away to make them suffer. You walked away to stop suffering yourself. You stopped feeding a connection that cost you peace, and that kind of strength doesn't fade, it multiplies. Here's what they'll notice right away. Your tone has changed. There's a serenity in your presence that doesn't revolve around them anymore. You're not cold, just clear. You don't seek validation, just truth. And the moment they sense that, their ego will start crumbling. They'll realize that silence didn't weaken you. It purified you. It burned away the parts of you that needed to explain, prove, or justify. You no longer need to win them back because you've already won yourself. They'll try to make sense of your calm. They'll wonder, how did they move on so effortlessly? But you'll know it wasn't effortless. It was intentional. Every silent night, every urge you resisted, every tear you turned into patience, that was your training ground. You didn't just heal, you leveled up. Silence taught you emotional discipline. It taught you how to sit with discomfort without breaking, how to let go without resentment, how to trust that not everything that ends is a loss. And when they stand there, trying to reconnect, you'll finally understand something beautiful. Closure doesn't come when they apologize. It comes when you no longer need one. Their regret might be real. Their affection might even return. But the difference now is, you're not the same person who once begged to be seen. You're the person who finally sees yourself. Folks, that's the quiet revenge of the healed. You didn't have to prove a point, you became the point. You didn't have to make them miss you, the universe did that for you. Because what's meant to miss you will always circle back once you've detached from needing it. They'll come back because silence reveals what noise hides. The truth. And the truth is, you were the one with depth all along. So when they return, and they will, don't rush to answer. Breathe. Feel the strength in your stillness. Remember that you already closed this chapter with grace, and now you get to decide if it even deserves an epilogue. Because the real victory isn't in hearing, "I miss you," it's in realizing you no longer need to hear it to feel complete. And that, my friends, is how silence turns pain into power. You didn't lose them, you found yourself. Your calm became your comeback, your peace became your proof. Let this be your reminder that silence isn't weakness, it's self-mastery. You're no longer chasing closure, you are the closure. So if this message spoke to your spirit, take a second right now, press that like button, share this with someone who needs strength tonight, and subscribe to stay with me on this journey. Write it in the comments. My silence is power. Because it is. And it's only just beginning.